You're listening to Pro Booth Talk, education and insights for photo booth company owners.
All right, welcome to Pro Booth Talk. I am Jason. I'm here with.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. So we're going to continue on. This is going to be part 3 of a 4 or 5 part series on staffing, depending on how many we need. We're going to talk about pay, perks, benefits, all that stuff. I don't know. I'm kind of torn about the whole pay thing, just because, I mean, it kind of dates us. If you listen to this in a couple of years from now, we may pay more or whatever. And also, I know, like, I've got a boother friend in San Francisco that I think pays like $40 an hour or something, and we're nowhere near that. So it's very, like, depending on where you're at, depending on when you listen to this, it's going to change a lot. So I don't know if the actual amount is really relevant to the discussion, but I don't know. If you're curious of what we pay people, sir, you're welcome to reach out. It's not a secret. I'm happy to share, but I just don't want to. I think it kind of timestamps the podcast.
Well, I mean, not just that, but I don't think it's even relevant because there's different markets, there's different minimum wage in different areas. So it's not even like, someone in San Francisco who pays $45 is not going to be the same as someone in the Midwest. Yes. I don't think the living cost and minimum wage is the same anyways.
I do think we pay well, and I suggest paying well. Increase your prices and pay your staff better. Keep them happy. Good staff is so hard to find. When you find them, pay them. I have had photo booth companies in my city comment about how much we pay. So just from hearing from other people, we do pay well. And from Facebook posts that I've seen, it seems to be pretty standard. So we don't pay through the nose or anything, but we do like to pay our people well once we find good people. So structure is kind of an interesting take here. So I've always been a very big proponent of pay people for what you want. If you pay people by the hour, typically that's all you're going to get from them is their hours. And generally speaking, most jobs, that's not what you want for people. You don't just want their hours. So when we started hiring people, years ago, we would have a minimum wage. We hired at minimum wage, and then we had a very large session bonus and review bonus, because those are things we wanted. We wanted people to take lots of photos. We wanted them to engage with people. And the only way we could measure that was by how many photo sessions there were and if there was reviews or not. So those things kind of factored into the pay pretty quickly. The reviews weren't consistent enough, so we dropped that out, but we did keep the photo session bonus. And from photo sessions, if people took a lot of photos, at the time, it more than doubled their pay. So we very heavily relied on the photo sessions because I would say when we were paying minimum wage, it was almost triple their pay. So we do a couple things. One, it would encourage people to interact with people more and take more sessions. When people are up there, they would engage more to say, okay, let's do one more. Let's try one in black and white. Let's try one with props or not props. Did I hear that's your daughter over there? Let's take one with a daughter. Go get your table and bring them over. So it encouraged more photos, and more photos obviously is a better time, and a better time leads to more bookings and better experience overall. And sometimes, like some people, it did not motivate them to take more photos. And in that instance, it just kind of was a automatic way to pay better people more, and people that weren't as engaging to automatically pay them less without actually saying, okay, I'm going to pay you less and pay you more. They kind of set their own wage. And I really liked that. After COVID, however, the pay structure in America was greatly adjusted, and you could not hire people for minimum wage no matter what kind of promise of bonuses and commission that you promised them. So we had to drastically shift the way we did that. We had to drastically reduce our photo session bonus and drastically increase our hourly pay just to get people to apply for jobs, which is unfortunate because I would much rather pay people for engaging and having a good time in an event rather than just hourly. So we do still have the photo session bonus. It's not nearly as high as it was in the past, but it is still, I'd say it's about 10 to 15% increase to what our event pay is, roughly. And in the last one, I talked about different host levels. Our different host levels do make different amounts of money, and they also have larger session bonuses as well. So that is kind of a unique thing that I think a lot of people aren't doing. I always recommend decide what you want your staff to do and find a way to pay them for that, and try your hardest to move away from paying for hours. If it's a salesperson, try to have it heavily based on commissions. If it's a tech person, have based on successful events without issues or whatever it is. Just try to find a way to pay people for what you want them to do instead of just for hours. That is my advice on that.
Incentivize them. So I do the same thing. So I don't really have like a high number for throughput. I don't actually push that because I really want my team to focus on composition. So for me, the session count isn't so big. But if they do receive any sort of compliment, or if they receive like a review post event, then they get a bonus for that. So them going above and beyond during the event, if there's a mention of it, they'll get a bonus for that. That's the only real incentive I have. Besides, like if we're working an event and they're able to like connect with the client and and help with the sale of an event, then they're able to run that event when the event does. So it's almost like securing their own event. Those are really the only things that I do. I don't really have too much that I could think of.
So say that last part again. If I missed.
So a lot of the team members, when they're on site, they engage with guests and clients, and sometimes you have someone who will contact, like discuss with them, like, okay, we want this for our event. I don't encourage my team to sell or pitch, but there's occasions where these guests really do love it so much that they'll connect with one of the team members, and if they secure that event and they follow up with them, they secure that event, then they just are the ones automatically assigned to that event. So it's almost like securing their own events. It's not really a bonus, but if everybody is fighting for like the fun or the awesome events, that's usually a way to control which events you're able to work.
Yeah, I've seen on Facebook.
I don't encourage like selling on site though.
Yes, I was going to just say that. I've seen on Facebook some people saying that they give their people bonuses or a percentage of a sale if they sell an event. We don't do that at all. I don't want my people selling events. They don't know how to sell events. They don't know the technical ends of selling the events. There's very likely they could make promises that aren't true. A lot of my staff, like, I don't even want them. I mean, obviously they could find out what we charge easily enough. They could just ask me, but I don't, want to train them to sell stuff. And also, if someone's brand new and they're seeing what you're charging, then that's almost encouraging to try and just go and start. They're like, oh, you're paying me the small percentage of the overall ticket price. I could just go do this myself. And they don't really understand the back end and everything that goes into it. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm encouraging team members to sell. It's not that. It's I don't even know how to put it in words. It's like developing that relationship. So like networking with that client that is inquiring. So you're not necessarily selling, you're not pitching anything. You're just connecting with that client and having that relationship, if they get the number and just keeping that conversation going. So it's not even a pitch. It's just, would that be business development? Is that how you would describe that? It's not, because they're not selling anything. I do all the selling for my company. But just establishing that connection, that friendship it gives you a lot easier path in terms of like closing a sale when your team is able to connect with that client. So that's the bonus. That's so like in the gray area. I agree. And
Yeah.
we've got our sales director is Shannon. So they all have Shannon's cards in case someone asks for a card. And then we always encourage them to also ask for one of their cards, because obviously a lot of times people ask for a card, it goes in their pocket, they forget about it, they never reach out. So we like to have control of the conversation. So we have them also ask for their card as well. And then when they bring all the equipment back, we have a desk with a tray for like a end of event like review that people have to kind of fill out and write. And next to that, there's a little basket for people to throw cards that they've collected, and Shannon just collects cards out of there. And it's not a lot. I'd say maybe on a busy weekend with like, I don't know, 12 or 13 events, there may be like 3 cards in there for her to pick up. So it's not a lot, but it's a good way for us to have control the conversation and let Shannon reach out to them instead of the hosts. On the subject of reviews, you mentioned you give a little something for reviews, and I mentioned that we tried to incorporate that into pay. It wasn't consistent enough, so we removed it. We didn't remove compensation for it, though. We just restructured it, and I don't think a lot of people do something similar to what we do. But so for a few years, we gave people like $20 for a review, and to me, that just like people didn't care. Like $20 for a review, like on the grand scheme of things, with their paycheck, it's a $20 boost. It's not enough for them to really push for reviews to just get the occasional $20. Maybe they'll try in the beginning, but when they see that reviews are harder to get than they realize, it's just not worth it. So because I valued each review at $20, I instead kind of built a system for a review reward system, and each level has a certain dollar amount attributed to it, so that overall, over the course of their review collecting, ultimately each review, if they get to the highest level, would still have that value of $20, but the reward system, gives it a lot more value. And I'll pull it up here, and so that I could just read off of some of the stuff that we do. But it goes all the way up to like including like a cruise for you and your spouse. Like we'll send you on a cruise if you
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
It is, and it is amazing, but it sounds more amazing because at the end of the day, it's still that $20 per review. It's just framed differently. That's more inviting. Okay, so the first review, they don't get anything. They get a high five from me. It's an exclusive high five. That's the only way for them to obtain a high five from me, is by getting their first review. So that's the first review. No monetary value to that. 5 qualified reviews, and essentially I have a few things for them to choose from that have a value of $50, including like a movie gift card, Smash Booth T-shirt that's personalized with like their name or something, a Hydro Flask, power bank. Then there's some things in the 10 review section with a $100 value, which could include a massage, a night out for 2, Smash Booth jacket or hoodie that's personalized with a name, and a few other items. Then the same thing, 25 review is the next level, has a value of $250. And that can include Golden Knights tickets, Vegas show tickets, Apple AirPods, essentially things with $250 value. At this level, I also let them start taking cash out for a smaller amount. They could have $100 in cash, and that will save me some money. And 500 at 50 reviews, things they could take $250 or an iPad Mini, Apple Watch, Raiders tickets, tattoo credit of up to $500, and then at the 100 qualified review level, it includes a cruise up to 2 with the value up to $1,000, $500 in cash, and a list of other things. So if they get something at 5, at 10, at 25, 50, and 100, they've got things that not only still equal $20 per review collectively over that course, but a few other things are happening. I guarantee, like, your staff has never posted to social media that they got a $20 kickback for a review. but I can tell you that almost every single time someone's picked a gift from this, they have posted to social media about how amazing their job is because they just got an Apple TV or going out on date night with their husband paid for by their company, and it does a lot more to boost morale. They like it a lot more, and then if someone doesn't last all the way up to 100 reviews, you actually end up paying less than $20 per review, because they never realize the full potential of that. So that's something that we do. And then we've got some qualifiers for the reviews, of course, to make sure that people aren't having their friends leave reviews and things like that. And it's kind of a pain because it's one more thing that we have to track. They have to be mentioned in the review, or specifically, like if they say something like our on-site team was amazing, we're still going to credit that person. But if they say like, Smash Booth was fantastic, then they don't get credit for that. It has to be directly related to something that they earn that review. And so far, it's been very successful. They all like it. They all post in our private chat group when they each other achieve something new and what they got. And like I mentioned, they're posting to social media about it. So spending the same amount of money and getting way better results. People are more eager to ask for reviews and more happy as staff, and also promoting us as an amazing company to work for locally on their social media. So I highly encourage people to incorporate something like that for your reviews. But that's just what we do.
Jason. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Well, thank you.
I really love that. Yeah, no, that's really awesome. I definitely see, man, you making me think I need to change how I'm doing that. Because that's I definitely see, like when you said a cruise, I was like, wow, like my ears popped up. I can only imagine like what your team members think when you're, letting them know that. That's amazing. I really love the idea.
Thanks. And even though it is a cruise, it's still the same $20 that you're paying. It's just framed so much better.
Yeah.
So, and obviously to get 100 reviews for one staff member, like they've got to be with you for a couple of years. Like that's a lot of events. Like even if you're getting a review, even if you're so incredible that you're not going to get a review more than every like third event. So that's 300 events that they've worked. So they've definitely earned it from you. They've been around for a while, and they definitely earned something like a cruise. So let's see other bonuses that we this up. Double shifts. If someone works 2 shifts in a day, we give them a bonus. We only allow our host level 3s to do 2 shifts in a day, but we get, I can't remember how much it is. It's maybe I can't remember. It's less than half of what they get for the event. I think it might be $100 or something. But essentially, it's I don't know, in place of doing like overtime, I guess, because no one's ever going to get like 40 hours in a week. And the way I guess another thing that I should mention, the way we structure the event pay. So we pay hourly, I guess, but we have a minimum as well. So we don't ever pay for less than 8 hours because, if someone's going to go out and roam for 2 hours, it's just not worth their time. Even if you pay, I don't know, $40 an hour, it's just not worth someone's time to go out for $80 to drive out to to your space, get your equipment, drive out to the venue, get there early, so it's just not worth it. So we always pay a minimum of 8 hours. Once someone has worked over 8 hours, then it starts counting hour by hour. Time for us starts from the moment they get to our warehouse. So that includes the time that they spend loading up into their car, the time it takes them to drive to the venue, time it takes to set up, to engage with people during the live event, to tear it down, put it back in their car, drive back and unload. All of that is their paid time. We do not personally, and I think you may do it differently because I know this is one of those times where every region is different. But Vegas is very small, so we don't pay miles. We are paying you while you're driving, and I think if you would rather be paid miles, it would be less. So we don't pay miles. We don't track miles. We don't charge like travel fees because, again, everything in Vegas is so close, so we don't have travel fees or anything like that. Of course, we do when people travel outside of Las Vegas, but within Las Vegas, we don't do any kind of mileage or anything. Where do you land on that?
I'm the same. So the moment that they're here to the moment while they're driving, working the event, pack it up, bring it back. It's the same as for me. We do charge traveling because in California there's, like San Diego can be 2 hours. We have like the Valley, which also is quite a bit of distance, and 2 hours is quite a bit of drive already. But then when you factor in the unpredictability of LA traffic, it adds to that. So we do add travel whenever we're like outside of like main LA. We're not based in LA. We're like 45 minutes away, but anything outside of LA, we do charge travel for it just because it's beyond like the normal drive time. So like San Diego, the Valley, and then some of like the desert, even though technically everything is kind of close, with traffic, it's not. So
you're a little, I don't know if you can move your camera, but we're only getting half your face on this.
Okay.
Which on YouTube, it will have the full video, but on the smaller clips, it won't. So, all right, back to, let's see, amount, structure, bonuses, taxes and cutting checks, all that jazz. I mean, I do the simplest way possible. Like I use QuickBooks, and QuickBooks has, an upgraded service that does all the tax math for you. So we just pay for that, and I don't worry about it. Like I don't mess with taxes. And when you're taking taxes out, it's not normal taxes. Like you're literally holding somebody's money, and if you don't pay those taxes, you're moving in from like tax fraud to criminal, because that's actually someone else's money that you're taking for them to pay the government. And if you're not paying the government, you've literally stolen that money from that person. So where you're talking about criminal charges and stuff, like it's not worth it. Just find a service, whether it's QuickBook or whatever. There's tons of payroll services out there. Just let someone else handle that. Pay that money right away. Have it saved in whatever escrow account that company uses, and let them pay it quarterly or annually or however often you have to pay your payroll taxes. And don't mess with that. That's my advice. What do you do for cutting checks?
I agree with you. I think you shouldn't mess with that at all.
Very easy. Not a lot of insight because we don't do it. We just let the pros do it. And we use only direct deposit. We used to do paychecks. Is always a pain trying to get it to people. We would just leave it at the office, but then they'd sit here for weeks because sometimes people wouldn't work for weeks. And when it's a smaller check, they're not in a hurry, but I want that money out of my account right away. So we at some point moved to direct deposit. Like we had one staff member and this check was actually pretty big. It was like $800. And when we went to do our taxes, our tax attorney was like, you have this like $800 check that's never made cash from like February of last year. And we, before we talked to the staff member, we wanted to make absolutely certain it was never cash. And we, looked everywhere we could and made sure it was accurate. And then we reached out and they're like, oh yeah, I just found that like 3 months later, but I felt weird cashing it now since it had been so long. So I just left it.
Is
like
it's
you have to cash it.
Yeah.
You have to cash your check.
Yeah.
Yeah, checks. I mean, technically checks aren't
void after 90 days.
It will say that on the check, but that's more for accounting reasons internally. Like banks don't have it to honor that. They could cash any old check that they want to, and they don't have any liability. But so that was the thing that really prompted us to move to direct deposit. Like we want money out of our accounts immediately. We don't want to be tracking people that aren't cashing their checks immediately, because a lot of times, people want money, but some of your staff may be living at home still, and that few $100 check might not be that big of a deal to them. They may just be setting it on their dresser and cashing it at the end of the month and forget about it. Who knows what it is, but we want our checks gone immediately. So we do direct deposit. And again, that's through QuickBooks. It was very easy for us to set up. When a new hire comes on, email, we put in their email address, and QuickBooks sends them an email to do all their W-2s and sign up with their bank information. And we don't ever deal with any of that. We just enter it into QuickBooks once, and then it's done on their side through a link. So very easy to do. And then I guess reimbursements. We do make for people pay for parking and things out of pocket, and then they just bring in their receipts, and we add that as a reimbursement on their checks. If someone has a better way to do that, man, share it, because it's it's a pain. People lose their parking receipts and they try to take screenshots of their bank statements, and I hate it. Parking is a pain.
Yeah. But it's important to stress to them too that like sometimes when you bring on new people, they kind of worry about that, and you gotta also stress like if valet's the only option, then just valet because you'll get reimbursed. I think a lot of staff, like especially out here in LA, when you have some parking that's astronomical 50, 75, I've seen like 125. Like I
Yeah,
always
especially
try
when
to,
there's a special event going on, like if the Raiders or the Knights are playing,
yeah,
every casino is going to be like $70 parking. So
yeah,
it's just insane.
at SoFi Stadium, it's like 200 to park there. So
Well,
if
yeah,
for any
definitely at the stadium, but just because the stadium's charging 200, all the casinos that are typically like $15 now they're charging 70 also.
yeah,
Just because the stadium there's a game going on, but
yeah. So I always try to make sure to stress like, just pay it and it's going to be reimbursed. Just hold on to the receipt. It is a pain.
yeah. So yeah, that's a pain point for both Lap and I. So if you have a better system, please share it. Let's see other perks. I went over my elaborate review award system. Free booths. We have a couple different systems for booths. I could pull that up real quick. Essentially, if someone is having a like their kid's birthday party or something, and it's not on a weekend, then as long as they go through it with us and they schedule it, then we'll just let them use a booth. We're not going to give them any staff or anything. They're going to have to be in charge of coming and picking it up and setting it up and operating it and returning it at a normal time during normal hours and whatnot. But we're okay with our staff just using a booth for their personal event. And it obviously that's not going to be any booth. It's just going to be your basic print system. That we also allow. We kind of limit this annually. We don't really track it unless someone's taking advantage of it. But if they want something else for like their sister's getting married or something, and they want it to be fully staffed and the normal experience, then we give them 50% off. And then finally, if someone has their own like life event, like they're graduating from college or they themselves are getting married, then we give them like a $2,000 budget. They can have anything we want. We'll fully staff it at my expense. They don't have to worry about anything. They're essentially a client with a $2,000 budget that we provide to them. So those are the three things that we do for discounted or free booths. I've seen on Facebook posts that most places just let them use booths at will as long as they're free, as long as they're available. But you know me, I like structure.
That's amazing. You give them a $2,000 budget and fully staffed. I feel like you're downplaying how awesome. That's pretty awesome.
I mean, it's not too downplayed. Like there's only been a couple people that have actually gotten married. Two people have gotten married and one person who has graduated from college. And I mean, it wasn't downplayed. They were very, very grateful. And,
yeah,
it's great to not have to worry about picking it up and having to have
or
staff.
working it yourself.
Yeah. Working it yourself or finding someone to push the buttons or whatnot. So,
I was in the boat of like for team members, if it's their personal event and we have booths available, we have a lot of booths. So it's very rare, except like in December, maybe October, where availability would be a concern. So I don't restrict it to like weekdays or weekends or anything like that. As long as we have it available, so they don't know until, because we get bookings the day before the event sometimes. In the past, I was more in the boat, like as long as you pay for the media, you set it up yourself, you break it down yourself, you're welcome to it. But I'm starting to move away from that, Jason, mostly because I used to think that it would be a great extra opportunity for them to learn more about setting up. If they want to do something custom, something unique, they would have to learn how to deliver that and set it up themselves. But I'm starting to pull away from that just because I know this is for your team members, is for their family, but I'm seeing the quality of the photos because they don't have anybody manning. It's a selfie booth. And no matter how great your team is at events, if nobody is manning the booth, It's just not going to be the same output. When we do events, we adjust lighting, we
Right.
compose a shot, we make sure everything's in frame. Even if I have an event for my own party, I'm not going to pay attention. My personal party photos are not going to be all beautiful. They're not going to be, the composition is all off. And I'm starting to see, at least I care enough to like go and make the adjustment during the event. I'll check on it. But I'm seeing with staff, they just leave it, and the photos are just horrendous. And I know it's a personal private party for them, but I just don't want that being representative of the type of work that we do, because it's not. So I'm moving away from that, and I'm making it where I'm thinking to make it a requirement to hire. You have to hire somebody to at least man the booth. Yeah, and I know it's an additional cost for them. I want it to be a perk, but at the same time, I feel like the images that we're putting out, I don't want that to be associated with the type of work that we put out. I don't want like their family, their friends thinking, "Wow, this is what LX Pics puts out."
I can see that.
So I'm debating on making it mandatory, where if you're going to take a rental, you actually have to have someone man it, because the photos, and I care, even if it's a free event for my staff, I care about the output. So I am I'm remoting in, checking the output. If there's adjustments in lighting, I'm going to call them. I don't care if it's free for my staff. I'm going to call them, like, make that adjustment. Because to me, we're putting out content that represents us,
So I respect that. I if it's a free event that staff took because they're doing something internally at their house, I don't check on those photos and stuff. So I respect that you are still treating every element as a normal event. So I would say, instead of, and maybe it's what you're thinking of, but instead of like charging for media and charging for staff, I would maybe just set it like a 25% fee that covers all of that stuff, so that it's easy to calculate on whatever they're looking for or something.
Yeah. And this is very new. I mean, this is just within the last, that's the reason why I'm so like, I'm thinking about the words as I'm saying it, because it's fresh. It's maybe like a month or two where I'm just thinking like, I understand that it's free event. My team, we talk about like iPads being just fun for clients. But at the same time, if you're going to take an iPad, that's different than if you take a DSLR booth for your private event and they come out looking really bad, the photos. Just not because you don't have the ability to do amazing photos, just if it's not attended, it's just not going to be the same. Doesn't matter how great you are. And that's my own personal events too. So I don't know. I'm on the fence about that.
There's always people there, and they see the booths and they associate that quality with the company.
Yes.
Even if it is just family. And I wanted to clarify.
But I also want them to have the perk.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You mentioned that you do let them take it on Saturdays. I just want to clarify that we do as well. It's just, based on availability. So I'll read really quickly the availability as far as blackout dates. Is not available the entire month of October and the first 3 weeks of December, because those are extremely heavy times for us. And then availability on Saturday is limited. So obviously during the summer, like we had 2 Saturdays last month where we didn't have any events at all. So I mean, if there's nothing at all, like sure, you can go take it and use it.
Yeah, that's interesting. October and December, those are my peak months too.
Well, December I think is everyone's peak months with holiday parties.
October I always thought was just a one-off for me. So that's interesting that you guys are busy in October too.
Octobers in Las Vegas are amazing. If anyone listening is thinking about visiting Vegas, October is the best weather. It's incredible. And that's why it's so busy. So there's just tons of weddings and trade shows. A lot of trade shows are in the beginning of the year, but there's a lot in October as well. Like SEMA is in October. So that's a big one. Let's see. Moving back to free booths, awards, travel. So we don't do a lot of travel. We've got a few places that we travel to, like Southern Utah and Flagstaff and things like that. And we've got set travel fees for those areas because we just drive to them. They're within a couple hours. As far as like national traveling, we do, I don't know, I'd say at least 6 and no more than like 10 or 11 per year. So it's not a big part of what we do, but it's certainly a perk because, people love, especially the age of most of our staff, tends to be like college or a little bit older. So, a free trip to Florida, and they're certainly fighting over who gets to go. So it's definitely a perk. They love doing it. And the way that we do that personally, and this is something I've never spoken to anyone else that does national traveling. So I would definitely be curious of how other people do it. We book the flights ourselves, and then we give them a per diem for the rest of the time. We always arrive a day prior to the event because flights are just too unpredictable. And then we typically book a flight the following day after the event is over, because events typically run late and it's tough to get all boxed up and then rush and make a flight. We do give them the option of before we book the flights, if they want to stay a couple days. Obviously that would be at their own expense, but we'll at least book the flight a few days afterwards or before if they want to extend their vacation. They will always ask on their first one if they're allowed to bring their spouse or a friend or something. Cool, whatever. I'm totally down with that. They can stay in your room, live off your per diem if you can afford it, but obviously they have to pay for their own flights. For per diem, there's a website. I'll look it up real quick and see what it is. I was turned on to it by my wife, who works for local government, and it's one that's used by the government and it has essentially a per diem for each. It's gsa.gov, it looks like. And you can put in the city and state that you are looking for, and it will give a per diem that the government gives for that area, and it takes into account the day of the week and the cost of eating and staying in hotels and stuff in that city. And that's what we use for our per diem. So it kind of varies from trip to trip, depending on if it's what city it's in and if it's a hot time of year for travel. That website knows all that, but typically it's somewhere around $200 a day. And then outside of that, we just pay the regular event pay outside of travel and per diem. The per diem is always, I would say, higher than what they're actually spending. So there's all incentive there as well. My wife travels occasionally through her local government job, and we use that same, obviously she gets that same per diem, and we do the same thing. Like, I'll pay for my airline ticket, and her per diem is always enough for us to have a hotel and both of us to eat and whatnot. So it's an awesome perk for them to travel and go around and see different places and have that on our dime. People love that. But again, I've never spoken to any other companies on how they do that, so I'd be interested to hear other systems. Do you do any traveling in that way?
We don't travel too much. When we go to San Diego, sometimes we go to San Francisco. We do a drive up there just because the moments that we have had to travel have been during high peak travel times, like during December. I just can't even risk taking flights. But yeah, I always make it into like a extra perk. Like I rarely, usually when we have to travel to like NorCal, it's more complex type services. So I'm usually there for the events, stuff that like I just don't feel comfortable remoting into tech support. So I take that opportunity because I don't get to be live at events with the team too much. So I take the opportunity to like take them on like excursions, or like the last time we were up in NorCal. Yeah, so it's almost like a team building mini vacation for, the staff that travels with us. Like the last time I remember I was in NorCal, we did like a sailing trip, and that was really awesome for them because some of them have never been like on, so I try to do stuff like that where, it's they get to travel, but then, also do things that maybe they haven't done before.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we are always like as cheap as we can go. So, I mean, the per diem is actually typically pretty high, but we will generally only send one staff member. And then if we need more, we'll just get VAs on site, or we'll find local photo booth companies and say, hey, can you come send some staff over? Or can you come help out with us? So, because that's way cheaper than flying and housing and per diem, like an entire team. But if the company is willing to pay for it, the client, then I love that you're using that as a team building time, especially because, sure, I could send them to Vegas escape room, but, they live here. They've done these things. So you
Yeah.
send someone to California and send them on a whale watching or something. That's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, my clients don't cover that. I just think like, it's a really great opportunity just to reward them because my team really goes above and beyond throughout the year. And when we have the opportunity to travel, it's just that moment where I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to take the cut. Not so much make it about the profit, but just make it about like, let this be like a great, vacation for them. So they really enjoy it.
Yeah, and I don't mean the client paying for the excursion. I mean if the client's willing to pay for multiple people to go.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I get, we do, and I'll cover some of the things that I do in the team building, which I believe is the next staff episode. So we certainly pay a lot to
I know you
to
guys,
do that
yeah,
team
I know you
building
guys
and
do a
stuff.
lot. Yeah.
So yeah, I commend you for just paying for that out of pocket, but I don't pay for people to travel out of pocket like the client has to pay for that. And typically, if I'm competing on a budget, it's easier to get a job by sending only one person and using local staff than it is to send 4 people all the time. So,
Yeah.
it's like I just did one. Well, I went to Georgia last year and connected. I think when we talked to Monica, I covered that already, but I connected with Monica from Strike Oppose Atlanta and had her come help me because, again, it was just way cheaper than having an additional staff member fly out there with me. And I just went to Minneapolis to do something there. And again, I just found someone local to come help me out instead of flying 2 people out.
Yeah, I haven't had to fly to events, so that definitely makes a huge difference. It's easier to bring
to drive
a bunch of staff members when you're driving.
Let's see, benefits. We don't really do like insurance. I know. I don't know if he wants me to mention it on here, so I won't. But I know of one photo booth company that does give their staff full benefits, like including their hosts and whatnot. That's incredible, and that's awesome, and that's a really big perk that would be very helpful in keeping people around and keeping them loyal to you. And I wish that we could do that. But after I spoke with him about it, I looked into it, and all I got was tons of telemarketers calling me about insurance now that I can't get rid of. So
yeah,
it's just not feasible for where we're at. So I can't offer any insight on that except for that it's really expensive, and that person is incredible for offering that to his staff.
Yeah, I agree. It would be awesome. I looked into it. It's very, it's yeah.
Paid time off. My office staff does have PTO time, but I'm not going to get into the office staff. Maybe we'll do a follow-up episode or one at the end that kind of on expanding or growing into office staff, but this is strictly about hosts. And I mean, they don't get PTO because I guess just the way we're structured, they're either working or they're not. If they go on vacation, they just don't get scheduled. So we don't do any kind of like sick days or vacation days or anything like that. Do you do anything like that? It seems weird for a host to have those things to me. Maybe
I mean, I don't have anybody on like a schedule, so it's just like when we book events, whoever wants to claim the event, if you're qualified for it, then I'll approve it. I don't have any office staff that work regular hours, so we don't have just because there's no guaranteed hours. It's just based on like
I agree.
Event needs. Yeah. So nobody has like set amount of hours each week. It's just, sometimes you're going to have no events. Sometimes you have tons of events. There's not.
Holiday pay and bonuses. So holiday pay, essentially if someone is working on the holiday and it's a holiday that we need to pay extra to have someone work it, like Labor Day, people will work Labor Day without needing to be paid extra, so we don't pay extra. But New Year's Eve, people are like, nah, I want to go out, and also I don't want to deal with drunk people at a party on the Strip. So we have to pay people extra to work on New Year's. I think we pay like $250 extra on that day, and of course we charge that extra amount to the client. So we essentially pay holiday pay when we have to on holidays that people don't want to work. So Halloween, Christmas. I don't think we've ever done a Christmas event, but we would certainly charge more and pay more for that. New Year's Eve, but things like Mother's Day and Easter, like there's no shortage of staff that is willing and wants to work on those days. So we don't do any kind of holiday pay for those events. We don't charge extra for those events either, though. So anytime we're charging extra for a holiday, we're paying extra, I guess. That's the best way to say it.
I go by the federal holidays. So like if the banks are closed and the post office is closed, those are the holidays that I acknowledge. So like Halloween, even though it's a high demand date, there's no premium on that because it's not a federal holiday for the nation. So they get regular pay, but like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Eve, if anybody does work it, we're charging our client extra for the holiday, and then they're gonna. I don't have to. I pay them double their regular because I feel like me personally, if I have to give up my time to my family, it's not really that I have to pay that. It's just that's what I would want if it was for myself, and I want to encourage anybody to sign up because it's all based on whether they want to work it or not. So making themselves available on days that they would rather be at home, I do feel like I want them to be incentivized. And I cannot pronounce this word for my life, incentivized for that. And like I personally, I charge double for holidays because it's my time as well. So if my team makes themselves available, I'm also having to make myself available because even though I'm not working the live event, I cannot help it with me just having to make sure that our output is there. I'm going to remote in. I'm going to be present from where I'm at. So when they make themselves available for a holiday, I make myself available, and I feel like we all should be, fairly paid for that.
So little differences there, but essentially basically the same. We also do like a Christmas bonus. It's not anything significant, but we do add a little something extra in the paychecks during the holidays. It's all the bonuses that I can think of that we do throughout the year.
I try to bonus the ones that make themselves readily available during December. So the ones that I know that step up when we have huge, because we've done just crazy volume during Christmas and it's always very, very last minute. Sometimes bookings come the same day, and the team members that step up and like help where we really need that help. Those are the ones that I give a bonus to come January because of their help during Christmas. So I appreciate the team members that step up, especially so busy we don't even sleep during Christmas.
I agree, and there's a lot of times during the year where someone is just stepping up and covering people's shifts or doing whatever, and of course we always recognize that at the time. And going back to my review reward system, I've used that as well because sometimes it's hard, obviously, to get reviews to mention your name, and when people cover a shift or something, then basically I'll review them, not actually physically on like Google, but like internally, add one to the review essentially, which is a review from me, and ultimately helps them get to the next level faster. Same thing if we do any like charity work, if we go down to like a soup kitchen or go stuff hygiene packages for homeless youth or something like that, then I'll do internal reviews for people that helped out with those as well, because they're not being paid to do any kind of charitable work that we do. So I guess I didn't mention that. So I'll do an internal reviews that eventually that add on to the review reward count. And then the last thing I had on my list was the scheduling assign versus post system. We already covered that in the last episode. So I think that pretty much wraps it up for compensation. Unless, can you think of anything I missed?
No. I think the one thing that has come up before is like, it's not so much pay or anything, but it's more just where I stand with stuff like parking tickets. I think in major cities that comes up quite a bit, like where your staff has to park like on the red zone or whatnot. Have you had that situation before?
No, I don't think that's really a thing in Las Vegas. My motto for most things, though, like what if my car breaks down at a red light? My essentially is make sure that the event happens. Like get an Uber, load into that. If your car needs to be towed, I'll pay for it. Like Like, just
Yeah.
figure it out and I'll compensate you for it. So,
Yeah.
and we have had to have someone like Uber last minute to an event to help out. And I think we had to have someone, maybe there was someone that needed to have, we did have someone's car that they stopped for gas and it wouldn't start back up again. And we had to have, a tow truck go pick up their car and bring it back to the office, and then order an Uber and load all the equipment into it and get to the event. And then essentially we had someone else go to the event and cover them and change them out so they could go back and take care of their car issues and whatnot. But yeah, the show must go on. Like, if you need to get something done, then do it, and we'll figure out the compensation and So I assume that's what you're going to say about like the red zones and stuff. Like,
yes, I'm in
ticket.
that boat where if there's a scenario where you just have to hurry up and get that equipment loaded in. I don't want my team to worry about like, okay, if I get this $250, not that I'm encouraging you guys, I'm not encouraging anybody to park in the red zone, but there's occasions where there is really no parking. I don't want my team to sit there and think like prioritize parking versus getting the photo booth dropped off, set up, and ready on time. Because there's situations in LA where they have to park 5 blocks down the way. If they have to Uber back up to the venue, Uber it, don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just care about getting that photo booth up and running, ready to go. Everything else is secondary. So I don't want you to worry about parking. If you have to unload in the red and you get a ticket, then, I'm going to cover it. I don't encourage it, but there's scenarios where there's no other option.
Yeah, certainly it will come with an explanation. If you're parking in the red and you're paying $250, like I need to know why. What happened? Why weren't you able to park? Why wasn't there parking? Were you not there on time, or was there an event going on? So certainly take care of it, but there's an explanation that needs to accompany it.
And I'm in constant, like making sure you have open communication where stuff like if they feel like they can't tell you things, then it just makes everybody's like communication is huge. If you guys can't have that open communication, it just makes it difficult for everybody. So, when things go down like that, where my team has to park in the red, I know beforehand. It's not like they're just parking and telling me after the fact. But it's more of me communicating like you have to think, sometimes you have to step away from like the money side and just think like, how would I want to be treated if I was the employee? Like, would I be mad if I prioritize getting this booth into the event setup and I had to park in the red because of that? And then now my boss is telling me that I have to pay that $250 ticket. It's not going to be you're not going to have a great mentality about that for your next event, where if you are in a jam, you have to set up in a certain time frame. You're not going to care because you don't want to pay that $250.
Yeah, you'll never park there again.
Yeah.
You'll be late to set up before you.
Exactly. So my take on it is like, I always try to think about it like, if I was the employee, like what would I want to hear from my boss? Like, what would I want their reaction to different scenarios? So I always try to think of that.
Yeah, and that is a good parting message. Consider what you would want if you were the staff. And I mean, obviously that's not always going to work out. I don't know if it's something that is really relevant to this episode, but when I was going to school, there was a whole section of one of my classes that was about incentivizing people, and it's funny because you can think of like, what would I want? But a lot of times the things that you think you want aren't the things that you actually want. Like almost everyone will say they're incentivized by money, but there is just tons and tons and tons of research that has gone behind this. And we know pretty conclusively that money almost never incentivizes people to do better. People will typically, whether they're paid minimum wage or paid $100,000 a year, people will perform at the same level because that's just the type of person they will. If they are a person that goes the extra mile for a company, they're just that type of person that does it regardless of their pay. They'll typically stay at a job longer that pays better, so you'll typically have the better staff. But as far as like incentivizing, everyone likes to like criticize the pizza party, but it is like one of the biggest incentivizers of every business, and that's why they use it. It typically gets the biggest results. And I worked at a telemarketing place for quite a while in my youth, and we did everything we could to figure out different ways to incentivize. And pizza parties were at that time we called it the pizza party paradox because we couldn't understand. Like everyone was like, "Oh, not another pizza party reward," but it always yielded the highest results. And I always thought it was because of the team building mentality. Like everyone is pushing everybody to do better because it's a group prize. Whereas if you give away, we gave away trips to Hawaii, we gave away big screen TVs, but the issue with those is you have like one person that's going to win and everyone else kind of gives up early because they're not going to win, and the entire team kind of fails because of it. And the person that wins, they're typically the top performer anyways. It was always going to do well. So it never really benefited the company to do these massive giveaways. But if we did a pizza party, everyone was always lifting each other up, and it was always very successful. That and recognition. People like recognition, like having Employee of the Month and things like that. Very, very positive for incentivizing staff and motivating them. But anyways, that's a little weird tangent that has nothing to do with pay, but
it's related.
Sure. All right. Thanks, everyone.
To keep the conversation going, join our Facebook group, ProBooth Talk Community. If you enjoyed this podcast, consider showing your support by subscribing, liking, reviewing, or sharing this topic with someone in the industry.